How about the Highguard layoffs? We're going to be discussing Highguard a little bit. It's unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate. Let me actually see if I can find the stuff on the Highguard. There was some stuff that was given to me on this. Highguard isn't dead yet, despite most of the team being laid off. So from Paul Tassi here, based on the breaking news from yesterday. Late on Wednesday, various members of Wildlight, the developer of the just released hero raid shooter Highguard, posted that most of the team had been laid off and they were now looking for work. This comes just over 2 weeks after the game launched on January the 26th. Even though its fate would now seem all but sealed, Wildlight says it's not dead yet. Concord 2 has become a meme in the gaming community, usually directed at a live service offering people don't believe will do well. The historic failure of Concord has always seemed unlikely to be replicated, shutting down after just 2 weeks. But well, here we are, and Highguard is teetering on the brink of that. Now, Wildlight, however, is indicating that laying a number of the team members won't shutter the game immediately, even if it certainly does not look long for this world. Here's the statement they just posted. Today, we made an incredibly difficult decision to part ways with a number of our team members while keeping a core group of developers to continue innovating on and supporting the game. We're proud of the team, the talent, and the product we've created together. We're also grateful for players who gave the game a shot and those who continue to be a part of our community. Now, it remains to be seen how drastically downsizing your entire studio 2 weeks after launch is going to be able to result in anything resembling the ability to take on the challenges of a live service game that needs to be constantly improved and updated in order to retain players. Player retention is what got them into this mess. Highguard had 97,000 peak concurrent Steam players at the launch of the free-to-play game, which was cut in half just 5 hours later, and then went down to about 4,000 to 5,000 a night after 2 weeks. Now with this news, how is this supposed to recover, much less not lose all of its remaining players who believe, probably rightly, that they're playing a doomed game? It's complicated, of course, to just kill your game after 2 weeks. Players have already bought cosmetic skins and most recently a new battle pass. So that would have all had to be refunded, even if the game itself is free. Well, I don't think they're going to. I think they're still going to push out their roadmap. There are certainly plenty of games that shut down their servers in time or go into maintenance mode where they remain playable with no updates. But this is 2 weeks into the game's lifespan. When Concord shut down, it was gone in a blink. Refunds, game offline, over. Whatever Highguard is now attempting to do here is to avoid that fate, but for how long? It's hard to see a path forward here unless the remaining members of Wildlight have such low player counts and revenue expectations that whatever happens next is okay. Now that overhead is cut. It's a disaster. Even if the light switch isn't off, someone is running around the house breaking bulbs. I do not expect any further good news out of this game from here. Chat, do we think Highguard's going to get shut down in the next year? Like, seriously. You were the biggest advocate and you're on Deadlock. That speaks volumes. Whoa, I liked Highguard. But yes, I did discover Deadlock here recently, and that's just fun. So Deadlock's just a really good game, and I think that the bar or the expectations for a PvP game is just incredibly high. We talked about this yesterday, how PvE players tend to play a game, learn it, dominate in it, potentially 100% it, and then they'll move on to like another game. And potentially even if it is a live service PvE game, you'll notice PvE players will tend to be in multiple loops. So like a Destiny player may play Warframe, may play Division, you know what I mean? Like cycling between these games. What I've noticed about PvP players, they do tend to like really just like marry themselves to a single game. That guy that picks up Counter-Strike, that's all he wants to play. Or League of Legends, that's all that guy wants to play. What that means is that Highguard really needed to present something that had enough wow factor to make people vacate their games that they play every single day. PvP players play. And I just don't think it had, although objectively, I believe that Highguard was a good game, it didn't have enough of a wow factor. And I think the game just played it too safe on the 3v3 front. I think where the game could have been interesting is if it did take like an approach like Deadlock and made its own version of a MOBA. But Deadlock is not something that is even fully released yet. And so this is not something like Highguard could just make on the spot. It takes incredibly long, and I don't see that happening. I think the most we may see is what's on the roadmap, if even that, and maybe they may give a 4v4 mode. That's all I can think of. I don't know what else they're going to do, especially with them laying off so much of their staff. When it comes to a PvP game, I guess all games, you go, all right, what's the depth of this game? I would say Highguard, despite its gunplay being pretty solid, I even like its various heroes that you can choose from. I would say that the game itself is just, it's pretty simple. It's a fun time. Like, no lie, it's a fun time. But it's also just not like incredibly deep, which is why I think like a MOBA aspect would have been that depth. I think that would have made it set itself apart from the competition. But at the same time, I don't think that like for something like that to work for Highguard, it would have needed to be in early access for a long time. Let me see this other article real quick. Oh, this one looks actually kind of juicy. I don't know. My man Paul might be cooking. Why games like Highguard and Concord are spontaneously combusting. Highguard, the new hero shooter from developer Wildlight, is clinging to life. Late last night, the studio announced layoffs that from those who were laid off, including most of the studio. This comes just 2 weeks after the launch of Highguard, a game infamously featured in the final slot of the Game Awards, the most high-profile game showcase of the year. There are clear echoes of Concord here, where even if Highguard had more players and surely a lower budget, it's creeping close to the same results, as it's unclear how a skeleton crew is going to maintain this game from here, or why players would stick around and invest time and money in a game that feels doomed. So why does this keep happening? How are these games releasing and then exploding on the launch pad? There are many factors here, and I want to go through them. One chance at a first impression. Oh my God, that's so true. That's so true, dude. Does your game look good or bad? A basic question, but in the case of these games, neither made a good impression from the moment they debuted, and it's desperately hard to recover from that unless you have one hell of a marketing campaign. Highguard did not have one at all past the Game Awards, as it was originally planned as a shadow drop. Dude, think about first impressions. Obviously, a lot of people are interested in what the team with BG3 is working on, but look at the Divinity trailer, right? That's the first impression of their next project. That has implanted itself in your mind, and now you're like, all right, I'm interested. I'm at least going to check this game out or follow when it's gonna drop. Same thing. You didn't even say the same thing about Marathon. I would say like Marathon last year's alpha went terrible, but I thought his first impression video they did years ago was actually pretty solid. And of course, they've had a lot of controversy since then. And then they had the cinematic last year, which was really, really good. But first impressions are huge. In these cases, the accusation was that these games looked like more live service hero shooter slop. Everyone's favorite buzzword now. There's one last separate chance at a first impression once you actually play the game, of course. In Concord's case, that was an open beta that drew just 3,000 concurrent Steam players, indicating a complete lack of interest in forecasting a disastrous debut. It did not hit 700 concurrent players on launch day. Damn. Highguard, meanwhile, was free to play, so you could jump in day one, and a lot of people did, with almost 100,000 concurrents on Steam alone. But a lot of people left almost immediately. The game cut its player count in half within a few hours, and has slid to just 20% of the launch players 2 weeks later. So if your game doesn't have a hook, you're done. Runway, these games clearly literally cannot afford to fail. There seems to be no plan in place if these titles underperform to fix things into shutdown or mass layoffs this quickly. For Concord, those numbers were so bad, it was understandable. But Highguard, supposedly not needing a huge player count, according to its own developer, should have been able to manage a longer tail without laying off most of the studio. Now it seems almost impossible for the game to survive from here, even if it's not dead yet. And then a narrative spiral. There's an idea that if there is an assumption from the start that a game will fail, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where the game does end up failing. This, however, ties into the first impression piece. If either of those games had released a blockbuster trailer or gameplay preview that looked amazing, that could have been avoided, or an open test that was much better than anyone anticipated. So no, I don't think players or even high-profile streamers can kill a game by themselves, as this is all wound together in an inextricable knot. Yeah, I would say the internet, when they decide they're gonna kill your game, there's not really a whole lot you could do. I mean, like, there are so many people that didn't even play Highguard, but will go out of their way. I mean, I'm talking, will make a hard left into no man's land just to talk shit about the game, even if they didn't play it. You see what I mean? Like, once the internet has, like, established that you should die. And by the way, this is only, like, the failures of Concord, and now I guess the failures of Highguard. This is only, like, adding more fuel to the fire. Highguard was a game no one asked for. How many games do you guys play that you asked for? I didn't know I wanted a looter shooter. Destiny came along. I didn't know I wanted God of War, but hot damn, I'm glad it came out. I didn't know if I wanted to be Arthur Morgan, but fucking Red Dead is fantastic. You know where I'm coming from? There are definitely games that you could say that with, but there are also great games out there that when that creative talent and vision come together, it makes a beautiful product. Someone at the Cyberpunk team said, you know what? You can run around with a rubber dick and you can kill everyone. And brother, that was the hook for me. Like, I enjoyed the gunplay. I was enjoying the narrative, but that right there, that hooked me. Now, but can you go and take a dildo and put it in every other game you ever play and expect that to be the same hook? No. There was a lot of context surrounding that. You can't just airdrop that shit, you know? Now, aesthetic. These games do not look good. I don't mean how they play. I mean visually, how they look. Concord have probably the single worst hero shooter aesthetic I have ever seen. Trying to channel 70s sci-fi and producing something awful. Highguard blended fantasy and sci-fi, but it had no coherent art direction, with a lightning shooting knight riding a horse while also holding a 2014 AR-15. It did not work. It did not stand out in a good way. And while this is not the only factor in the game performing well, Marvel Rivals and Deadlock, for example, do have a great, unique aesthetic to them, which helped them with all that with that all-important first impression. The upcoming marathon looks incredibly slick, though a good aesthetic is not a guarantee of success, but a very bad one is a canary and a coal mine for failure. Yeah, dude, I will say, man, let me just click over here real quick. Dude, just take a look at the art style in Deadlock. You know what I mean? Like this is, I know good artists are probably incredibly expensive, but this is the result. You know what I mean? It's pleasing. It's pleasing to the eye when it's right. And I'm not even talking Gooner bait. When it's one of those things, like I'll put it to you like this. If you're willing to put a picture as a wallpaper of one of the characters, or dare I say, hang it up on your wall, that's a good sign. It's a really good sign. Like Destiny, it has its faults for sure, man. But, you know, there's a lot of us that actually update wallpapers with Destiny's previous expansions. Or I remember years ago changing wallpapers with the Witness and whatever else. Hero shooter fatigue. I know this is a common refrain, hence the hero shooter slop phrase. But in practice, I think the problem is that players are tired of bad or average entries in the genre. Again, even since 2025, we have seen hero-based games, Marvel Rivals and Deadlock, have great success. Just this week, the 10-year-old Overwatch relaunch and spiked its player count higher than it's been in years. And if we are broadening things to the larger live service shooter category, we have Arc Raiders, arguably the biggest contextual success of last year. This fatigue concept, despite being a frequent target, is not the main problem. To me, this is mostly an economic problem. Making these games with big budgets without allowing for underperformance, leading to immediate inexcusable shutdowns or cuts, then is a decision-making process when it comes to art direction and often trend chasing years late. Yes, fans can be overly critical, but it's not like no one is giving these games a chance at all. It's their job to sell themselves, and they simply don't. I gotta say, man, y'all remember that game we played last year? Wildgate. Wildgate is a great example of an incredibly fun game that just died. It's not dead, but it's not good. It's not good. Wildgate is an incredibly fun game. It's essentially Sea of Thieves, but in space. It pits you and your vessel against a number of other people and their vessels, and you go around the map, you kill PvE enemies, you get upgrades, and then you take on people and their ships, and it's incredibly fun. But even something as creative as that game, it still died. You know what I mean? It's just art, man. You know, there's people out there that are incredibly talented and they have a vision, but sometimes the vision just doesn't resonate. And unlike having a canvas and doing fucking whatever you want on it, and then down the road maybe someone might appreciate that piece of art, and with video games, it's right there on the spot. Right there on the spot. And I would say most gamers, especially in the PvP landscape, are just kind of just jaded. You know what I mean? Just kind of just pissy. You know, they kind of look at life through like just piss lens. You know, just kind of angry to begin with. You know what I mean? So they're just like waiting. They're just kind of like waiting to just jump on something, you know? The Highguard team could have made Titanfall 2.0. Can I say something? And it's going to really upset you guys. Titanfall was good and I enjoyed it. But I also kind of remember when that shit was dead too. It wasn't dead, but it wasn't thriving. Okay, I'm just throwing it out there, boys. I'm just saying. Everybody talks about how great Titanfall was, and I enjoyed my time in Titanfall. It got released between two Titans that overshadow it. Not Titanfall's fault. Its devs chose a shit time to drop it. There's a lot. I get it. A lot of reasons. Okay. I'm just saying, what if the developers saw the lack of reception towards Titanfall and thought to themselves, we obviously shouldn't follow up with another Titanfall. You know what I mean?
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.